Well, welcome back, everybody. You've just watched the new video for Ode to Myself, which was constructed by a company called Brought to You. Anyway, really inventive people. And Titania and the other people in the company wanted to have a kaleidoscope effect. They didn't like the online kaleidoscope effects. They thought they looked too cheesy. So they built a big sonar tube with mirrors inside, and it was done like a Fred Flintstone land. They would have people moving it around and around and around, and she'd say, faster, faster, slow down, move. And we, of course, would just stand there and be the object of the effect. But I thought it was a pretty cool idea, and it's always fun to be part of something that's done on such a basic handmade level. And they're very imaginative people. And we also like videos where we don't have to do a lot, where we just have to stand there and the effect goes on around us, and we don't have to be out in the cold. I remember when I made my first solo record, that was the dumbest thing ever, that first video, to be outside in a rain effect. So now we've gotten wise. It's a beautiful place.
Did you say wet and wise?
We've gotten dry and wise, and Ode to Myself is supposed to be a sort of a jubilant song. I guess it's a result of the pandemic, but it's about sort of figuring out and deciding and accepting the things that are important to you, your friends, and playing music. And of course, that's what we're trying to show in the video is how important we are to each other and playing music. And the kaleidoscope effect is supposed to be the beads of joy coming off us. So I think now I think I've talked enough for all three of us. So maybe we'll answer
the whole interview.
So now we'll answer some questions.
No, I'll just leave it up to Bats.
You know what? As we're just coming off of the video, I'll start with a question about that song. Jackie from Saskatoon asks, I've noticed a thematic shift in Jim's lyrics. The focus on joy is quite obvious in I Owe It to Myself, but it's there in all 5 of his songs on the album, really. I think about you as just pure fun, and the other 3 have threads about better days ahead. Can you speak to this shift? And also, how do you find small joys in each day?
Well, I'm sorry, guys, but I'm going to have to answer this one alone. Okay?
Or heckle.
I don't know if it was because of the shutdown for 2 years that we've experienced, but of course it does focus your love of things if they're taken away, and the ability to make music with my friends and to go out there and play for people and entertain. That, although I thought I was handling it pretty well, I guess it did pop up in all my songs. So I guess I was kind of longing for that. But I think it's also a product of aging. I think as you age, your career goals don't really matter much anymore, and you start to understand what is really worth putting your effort into and really worth striving for. And so, being a good band, having a good family, they sound simple, but they require a lot of work, and I guess that's what pops up in the songs.
Gail Fisher from Port Colborne asks, was this album written entirely during COVID?
Gregory, why don't you take this
Sure.
one?
No, it wasn't exclusively bracketed by the COVID. I know some of my songs had been kicking around for a while, and I had recorded a whole pile of songs to present to the band. And so I did a little bit of clearing the closet a bit too, of just stuff that's been hanging around and recording it and see if it would fly. And, but, I would say that, once you start collecting songs for a record, sometimes it just opens the door a bit and other songs come out. And so there were a couple that were written during the recording process, just because you got the juices going and songs happen almost easily.
Nice one.
Mine
were written for the album. So I was in the process. I mean, I was writing for the year and a half prior to But I was writing for a solo record because I didn't realize Blue Rodeo was going to make a record. And then when Greg and I talked and we were going to make a record, then I shifted and started writing. But as Greg said, the door was open and it wasn't difficult. It was just a question of keeping going the practice that I was already doing. I was up at our country place and I was just sitting there looking out at the pond and the weather changing and just chipping away at songs. So it was a very, very good flow to be in, and so it wasn't hard to switch around and write for the Blue Rodeo record.
Baz, I'm going to throw this one to you. Sylvia from Montreal says, first off, I love your music. You guys are amazing. I would like to know if there is a sentimental favorite on the new album. And if you
A sentimental favorite?
Yeah, or a favorite on the new record.
Oh, geez. My state of mind when we were recording this record, I felt like I was at death's door. I was going through a lot of health issues. So I didn't realize what I had recorded until after I heard it back, like months later, and I kind of went, "Oh yeah, this song." I remember. I remember Jim screaming chords at me from over there while I was over there, basically on my chair sideways, not really sure if I was going to be able to get myself to sit back up straight. I had no B12 in my body, and I didn't know it at the time. And my retina had detached, so I couldn't really see well. So the songs kind of came and went for me, and I ended up listening to them later, and it was like me listening to a record that I felt somewhat detached from, because even though, with Greg's songs, I was much more there. I had regained my health. But when I was recording a lot of Jim stuff here, I was in really bad shape. So I don't really have like anything that stuck to me. Like, I knew that the songs were good. Like the ballad. What's the name of the ballad? The one you were actually shouting the chords at.
Oh, isn't that I Will Wait?
I Will Wait.
Yeah.
I remember thinking, like, even though I was kind of like, so out of it, I remember thinking, this is a really nice song, But that's about all I could remember of it. And then when I heard it back, and I thought, like, hey, I played rather well on that, Like, I was surprised at my own performance because I really wasn't in the shape. I didn't come with my A game on, that's for sure. So,
but you play better when you're at death's door.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
We're getting the last few notes out of him.
I actually said to Jim, I said to Jim and Colin at the time, I said, I'm sorry, didn't come with my A game on here. And they were like going, no, it's great, just keep going, right? So I kept playing, and I was quite surprised that with the energy that I managed to put out, even though I really felt like I didn't have any in my body at the time. So the whole record was a bit of a surprise to me when I heard it back. I was like, this is really good.
Tiffany Johnson states, I heard an interview with Jim and Greg about the new album on CBC. It was great. I especially loved when you talked process. Is there any innovation in your process that you will keep even after COVID is manageable and things can go more back to normal?
Well, I think one of the things we learned is that we don't all have to gather and work songs and get live versions. I mean, maybe we will, but it's certainly added to our toolbox now that we know we can start with a kernel of a song and then send it around and get, just back to what Basil was talking about, and I think this is important for this question too, is like, although Basil had to we had to yell chords at him, we didn't tell him what to play. He knew instinctively, even though he was only half there, he knew instinctively what to play. So all those parts are his own invention. We're just we're just saying turn left, turn right, turn left, turn right, don't hit that wall, and so I think that's with a band that where the parts have fit together for so long, and we know how to play with each other, that it was amazing to watch them work independently. It was amazing to come in here and watch Glenn work, and just watch him articulate the song, and again, we don't tell each other what to play. We maybe sometimes tell each other not to play, but we don't tell each other what to play. And so I don't know. I think that this was very successfully done, and we will have to examine that the next time we go to make a record.
What was the biggest, oh, I'm sorry, Amy from Niagara asks, what was the biggest challenge in putting the album together? And what was the greatest joy or surprise?
Okay, I
Maybe
guess
you can
it's sort of
answer
my turn here on the round table. For me, the biggest challenge was I was working in a studio in Coburg with Jimmy Boskill, Ian McEwan, and James McKenty. And Ian would play drums, and James and Jimmy Boskill would play acoustic guitars, and we'd put down a version of the song. And then Ian would put down a bass part. We'd build it up a bit from there. And so my biggest question was, how is this going to work when I send this to everybody else? Is everyone going to be cool with the idea of replacing parts, or even being presented with a finished sort of tune? And one of the deals that we've all been forced to work with during the COVID is re-envisioning how you do things. Like, everyone sort of says, well, we're going to return to normal eventually, but there is no normal now. Like, normal has been revealed to be something that's maybe not all that great. Maybe the normal that we had all been living was, and I'm saying in the bigger cultural societal way, a bit of a sham. And but when I sent the songs to everybody and I heard everybody's responses were so positive, it was quite refreshing and renewing, because maybe at one time in the band's career, the idea of doing this would have been not a good idea. People were very connected to their musical roles and composition in the band. So to get songs that are sort of, have been worked on, and everybody's attitude was just like so positive, I thought it was very inspiring to me. And, I guess that part of the COVID too is that people were just happy to have musical work to do, because it's so much a part of our lives. And for everybody in the band to have all these songs to play on, it really gave them a bit of a ray of sunshine in their musical existence.
Thank you. Scotty from Kingston, Ontario asks, when did you guys decide to add Jimmy Boskill to the fold? Great addition.
I was thinking that Greg's bunch of musicians, they sound like an Irish gang. McGinty and Boskill and Kaler. We're gonna do some kneecapping tonight. Jim Boskill is obviously part of Greg's gang out there, and is a phenomenal musician. And I think that he played on a Blue Rodeo record. I know he played on one of my solo records, and we just bring him in and got to know him.
We got him to come in and play mandolin. On
who did, or we did?
Yeah, on the last studio record.
Right.
A thousand arms. He came in to play
right.
on 1,000 arms.
Right. So that's I guess how we got to know him. But maybe Greg should answer this, because Greg he brought him in more directly.
I played with him when he was 11,
I played hockey with him when he was 12.
I did. I was doing a show at the Horseshoe with Colin Linden, Bruce Coburn. It was called Bambi the Deer Hunter. It was a Christmas show that they did every year, and Colin Linden would have all sorts of guests. Well, Johnny Diamond, the bass player who usually plays with Blackie and the Rodeo Kings, was on the road with Natalie McMaster at the time, so he couldn't do the gig. So Colin called me to do it. And I went to do it, and I get down there, and there's this guy is sitting in the corner, and he's a child, but he's got this great big white cowboy hat on, right? And it's flat, like it doesn't have the ends curled up or anything. And anyway, he came over and said, "Can I get my parents are huge Blue Rodeo fans. Can I get a picture with you?" So I took a picture with him, and then we went on to play. And Colin called him up on stage and said, "We're gonna get this little fellow who plays the blues up. This is my friend Jimmy Boskill." And he came up, and he played 2 songs. And there was Bruce Coburn, Gary Craig on drums, all these great musicians, and he was just smoking, and he was 11 years old, right? But he was like obviously a child prodigy. You could just see that. Wow, like this kid was, he's an old soul or something. He's born with it, right? And so was my first encounter, and then what 15 years later or whatever, I hear that I'm not at the studio that day when we're doing. I think it was "In Our Nature" is the record we were doing, or no, it was
Thousand
Arms.
Thousand Arms, and I hear that this guy's come in to play a mandolin solo, and his name's Jimmy Boskill, and I'm like, I know that guy, right? And so when he first came in to play with us, he brought the picture of me and him at 11 years old, and me with long hair at the time, right? So
How many instruments do you guess he plays?
oh God.
Well,
Everything.
it doesn't even matter how many he plays. He can play, ultimately, eventually, he can play everything. He plays piano, he plays mando, he plays violin, he plays pedal steel. Violin and pedal steel are extremely difficult instruments. But Jimmy, I think, is one of those guys that simply has always known how to play guitar. I don't think he
Yeah.
had to learn like the rest of us.
No.
He's always known.
Yeah,
He's got
I
the
remember
most
now that
wild
we're talking
instrument.
about it. We got him in to do some mandolin, and we were at that part of the record where we're doing vocals, right? So it's just you and me in the studio, Jim Cuddy, that is. And you brought me back into the storage room, and you said Bob was leaving the band. He had a job offer in Kitchener for something that he wanted to take, stay with his family, get off the road, all that sort of stuff. And we just sort of both looked at each other because we knew that Jimmy Boskill played pedal steel as well. And we thought, well, I guess we've got a replacement musician.
Never. That's what happens when you leave a band. You vaporize.
And then we airbrushed
Bob out of
all the photos.
the promo picture.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's not our first time, is it?
Maybe not.
No,
No, we
Maybe not.
airbrushed, what's his name?
Kim.
Packwood.
Packard.
And
Well,
Kim.
that was funny because I remember
And Kim.
that the vice president of Warner had a big Blue Rodeo picture, and he'd put an X as the members left. He'd put an X through Cleve, Bobby. He thought that was funny. So it's going to go way further than that.
Zach from Nova Scotia says, I noticed you guys listed the instrumentation on a track-by-track basis on the new record, and there's a lot of double duty between Colin and Jimmy. Do you feel that gives you more room to explore when you hit the stage than previous albums, which have been mostly off the floor?
Well, for sure it does. I mean, to have 2 talents like Colin Cripps and Jimmy Boskill to play guitar, mostly it's sorting out who's going to do what and how to stay out of each other's way. And they're very complementary to each other, and they play very differently. They're very much of different schools of guitar playing. So I think what it's done is it's relieved Greg and I of the duties of playing electric guitar. Greg doesn't play anymore. I play some, but not very much. And we can more concentrate on rhythm and singing. So I don't know. It's maybe that was an evolutionary part of the band, is that as the 2 old guys get older, we just replace them with younger guys. You haven't been replaced yet.
No.
It's pretty good. You see, we know you can do it. You can do it when you're half dead, so you won't get replaced.
Rob from Lebanon, Tennessee says, I've been with you guys since Outskirts. Speaking of, many a mile is a very southern U.S. expression. What's the story behind the album title? Greg, maybe you could take
Sure. I don't think Many a Mile is exclusive to uh, the southern states. I think it's you could check all over the world, and I think the expression is often used. And uh, sort of in many of our records over the years, we have often used that song titles or lines from songs to get the titles. You know, we've been talking about 1,000 Arms. Well, that was a song on that record. And the line is from what's the title of the song?
Opening act. Opening act.
Opening act. And so one of the lines in the chorus is "Many a Mile to Nowhere," which is sort of life on the road. And the line is "Many a mile to nowhere, doing the same old thing," which is exactly life on the road. That you just the cities and the dates just keep on revolving and rolling by, and if things are going really well, sometimes you don't even know what city you're in. You know, you just get up on
It's
stage
a beautiful
and they
thing.
play. And so you can
delirium.
get a little confused, but it is a nice sort of confusion because you're just focused on doing what you do. And so Many a Mile in this reference is just, I guess it's got a couple of meanings that there's many a mile on all of us as well. You know, there's many a mile on our bodies, psyches, and souls. And there's many a mile on the rubber of the tires that's driven around for 35 years. So it's a little more poetic than saying wear and tear for the name of a record.
And there's many mile to go.
Oh, and many miles. That's a good way to look at it. Many miles to go.
Bridget from Perry Sound says, I'm loving the artwork on the new album. Can you share some info?
Well, I'd seen this art on Instagram, Luke Swinson, and it was just beautiful art. And this one image, my first glance at it, it just sort of encapsulated. Well, we didn't have a title at that point, but just the picture, just the landscape, the sort of Zen landscape that he had painted of a tree beside a road going off into nowhere. And it was just a beautiful image that was looking for an album cover and a title. And Many a Mile ... just seemed very apropos. It's funny when you're writing and making records and things are fitting together, you know, whether that be the lyric or a chord change, or you have a line that you can't fix, or a name, and you're riding along in your car and you see a sign on a store and it's the perfect name for whatever, you know. And so I just saw this picture and it just seemed like perfect. It just dovetailed into the collection of songs so nicely. And it's just so suggestive with the title Many a Mile.
I'm going to ask a few questions about songs, since a lot of fans are writing in about that. Doug from Toronto wants to know, Greg, who was the opening act?
Tara McLean. No, Tara Lightfoot. That's what I would do every night. That was a little reenactment of the crime. And I don't know. I had one of those, I often have those sort of mental moments on stage. There's something about my brain and the microphone that can bring out the strangest parts of me. But every night I'd have this little mental gap and I'd say the wrong name. And even I'd be saying the name going up to the microphone and it'd still come out of my mouth. I call it adult onset Tourette's almost, it's just this weird thing. And so, yeah, but Tara Lightfoot, and it was a great tour. It was really a great tour. And it was great to hear her music and get to know her as well.
Jim, Peter from Toronto would like to know, I love that nice slow ballad where you sing about walking the street at night and no one is around and you focus your thoughts on an empty subway car passing you by in the distance. Where in Toronto did you capture this site? It definitely sounds like the East End or the Bloor Street Bridge underpass.
It's probably more from the trains that are going along, where they go above ground, like along Yonge Street and Davisville. But it was really just evocative of people passing you by. I do live in an area where there's the Don Valley, there's train cars going over the Bloor Viaduct, there's all kinds of buses. But there's something kind of evocative about trying to avoid running into people, but then watching people go by late night in a subway car. That was what I wanted to capture for the song.
Greg, Chris from Port Alberni, BC says, Ride Your Bike is my favorite.
What is?
Who are the rebel?
Ride Your Bike.
Oh, yeah.
Is my favorite. Who are the rebels on the rooftop? What does that mean?
Well, it's just the friend that I'm singing about riding her bike. She's a articulate, dissonant lefty, and I think that in my mind, she's just sort of riding her bike and gathering the soldiers for her imagined revolution and overthrow of
the Toronto City Council.
Well, and all those sort of the strange politics that we're in this at this time, and so she's always sort of plotting the overthrow of the oppressors. Did I lose you? Hey.
You're back.
Jim, Tammy wants to know, I would love to hear the story behind I Will Wait for You. I cry every time I hear it. It takes me back to how I felt dropping my 3 sons off at college.
Yeah, I guess that's because, that was definitely the narrative, but I didn't think I shared that with everybody because I didn't want to embarrass my kids. I didn't want them to feel like, well, this is about you and this is about how desperate I was after you left. It really starts from the song "Only Living Boy in New York," which was Paul Simon's song, and he's saying goodbye to Art Garfunkel, who's going off to do a movie, and he's saying, got to get your plane on time and everything, and he's reassuring him, even though his partner is leaving him on his own. Now, why Paul Simon would be worried about being left on his own, I don't know, but that's another story. But it struck me as reflective of how it felt to see your grown children off into their lives, and the only thing you can do is say, if you need me, I'll be here, and that's your only function after 18 years of being right by their side and doing everything for them. You no longer need it in that way, and it's glorious to watch your kids. I'm going to make you cry. It's glorious to watch your kids take their place in the world. It's a beautiful thing to watch, and it's also sad to let them go. But it's that beautiful dichotomy in life. The same thing that brings you sorrow brings you joy.
I was thinking that too. Basil was talking the other day about a song that you had written about him, and he was, and I was just thinking, and Basil said that you got to be careful when you're around songwriters because you're going to end up in your songs.
All right, and then you got to be careful who you tell that it's about them.
Well, I was thinking how hard it must be on your kids because, they're just stuck there with you, and you're going to write songs about them. Like, it's
Yeah,
sort
but
of-
now they can write songs about him.
Yeah, I know. Since two of them are songwriters, they can pay me back at any time. It could be painful.
have you heard that one yet?
No,
No.
no, I don't. No, I don't think I've. You know, I think that the eldest has definitely pushed away any sort of obvious influence, so he never would. And Sam, you know, the only thing that Sam's writes is about how dumb old people are. He's a total ageist, so I always count him on that. So, but no, I'm represented in a broader sense, not in a personal sense
Right.
yet.
Amanda from Barrie asks, and maybe this is a question for everyone, Blue Rodeo has collaborated with many artists over the decades, both in recordings and in live performance. Who would a dream collaborator be for the group? And can we anticipate any new collaborations with artists in upcoming performances, songs, or albums?
Go on, Baz. You're the one that plays with everybody. What's a dream collaboration?
Oh, I don't know. I did invite Gary Loris down because I talked to him just a couple of weeks ago,
Yeah.
and that might happen. He said, "Yeah, that sounds like a good idea," but you know, it's still just an idea. I don't know who the dream. You know, it's when a band is a band. I always kind of think the best things that they do are when they're together. Just the band, you know. I mean, after watching Get Back, everyone kind of has been saying, well, wow, Billy Preston really added a lot to the Beatles, which is true. But in a sense, the same way that Jimmy Boskill adds a lot to Blue Rodeo, coming in at like a 35 years after the fact kind of thing. But I don't know if, when we worked with Sarah McLachlan, she was glorious. I mean, talk about a fantastic singer with fantastic time, and everything that she added was great. In the future, I don't know. I haven't really given it a thought. I mean, I do hope Gary does come down and we get to sit around the recording studio here and, play some songs together. That would be fun. But
You've done a lot of collaborations. I mean, you've got
Well,
Chris Christopherson.
yeah.
You've done Levon Helm.
Yeah, I mean, I've worked with a lot of people who I'm really pleased that I got the opportunity, like especially Levon Helm. That was a dream come true. And especially to think that he didn't do much recording after that, other than his, two solo albums that he put out. But he was going through throat cancer when I worked with him, so he wasn't really singing much. And
Well,
so
you were
he was just playing
making. You
drums.
should name drop that you were making a Ronnie Hawkins record. With
Yes, we were
Levon Helm.
making. The plan was to get the Hawks back together. So we had Richard Bell, who's no longer with us, on keyboards. We had Colin Linden on guitar. Me and Colin Linden were the two new Johnny Come Lately guys. Everybody else, it was, Levon with the Hawk and Richard Bell. And Garth wasn't there for some reason. I'm not really sure why. But this was like, get the old guys back together and make one last album. And to see them fight and, Lee gets really mad at the Hawk because the Hawk was sitting out and letting his son, Robin Hawkins, his son, would sing all the songs in the same key as Ronnie, while Ronnie sat out in the kitchen and would be sneaking brandy into his coffee. And Wanda would be screaming at him, "Stop it, I saw that, you're a diabetic." Anyway, he just had his, 87th birthday yesterday, 2 days ago, I think
yeah?
it was. Yeah, 2 days ago.
Happy birthday,
So
Ronnie.
he's still doing good. Happy birthday, Ronnie. But it was, to me, when Gary Craig showed up just to watch the sessions, he ended up playing on some of them, but he said to me, "Basil, do you feel like you're in a documentary?" I said, "Yeah, I think I am." He said, "Yeah, it's really weird." Because they reverted right back to the way they were when they were playing at, the Friars or Lecoq or the Hawk's Nest or whatever it was. Their relationship just became, the same. And, the Hawk was, trying to kick Lee's ass sometimes and that. And I was just, this newcomer there. And then, there were times when I would get to just just a little peek into, you know, how they really felt when, like, the one day the Hawks, or the Hawks started talking about Rick Danko, and Lee Von Helm started crying.
Mm.
And that freaked me out, because I was standing there scooping chili into my bowl with Lee, and all of a sudden I saw tears rolling down his face. He looks, he goes, "I miss him so much, Hawk," and he started crying, and I was like, oh man, that was a moment. You know, it was like one of those things that I just never could have imagined, and I kind of felt like, and I'm taking his place. Right? I'm taking Rick's place. Of course, Colin Linden pops in. He goes, "You know, Basil always looked at Ricky always looked at Basil as like his younger brother, right?" To kind of save the day for me.
That's great.
That was one of the collaborations of my life.
That's great.
You know, where I could say, being on stage with Chris Christopherson is another one. Which he's kind of part of that same group.
I know. Well, Greg, you had one, didn't you? That where you were with Gordon Lightfoot and Neil Young and Chris, or no, the Hawk, and who was there at that one at the farmhouse?
That was up at Ronnie Hawkins' place. You still there?
Well, we're still there, but you're not.
And my picture's not there.
Your picture's not here.
Do you need my picture?
We can put in a promo picture.
That'll be good enough. But yeah, it was me, Gordon Lightfoot, Chris Christopherson, Ronnie Hawkins, and they were doing me and Bobby McGee just for fun. They were recording it. And so, and it was a party. It was really, like, I was just shocked at the amount of alcohol and drugs that were smoked by my heroes, who I always thought that might, at the age that they were at, might have, you know, pulled it back a bit. But they were letting it go because they were together. You know, they were sort of had that, okay, we're just going to let it go today. And it was a fantastic part.
I'll conclude with this question. Bob Peacock from Sarasota asks, after all these years, where does the motivation come from?
I think that's the simplest question. I don't think we've ever lacked motivation to play music. I think that when you listen to those last two stories, you realize that we're still living such touched lives because we get to make music for a living, and we get to rub shoulders with all these amazing people that we admire and whose talents we've listened to all our lives, and have never lacked for motivation to play, and never lacked for motivation to write songs. That is my part of my lifeblood, and I would assume it's the same for everybody.
Yeah, I can't imagine not playing music. I mean, the darkest period of my life has been COVID, because I don't get out and play live music, and it's driving me crazy. I really have to get out and play live music. I couldn't have imagined taking 3 weeks off playing live music, let alone taking 2 years off. So it really has, you know, there's people in my life who'll say that it's destroyed me, you know, because without getting up and doing that and playing, going to the studio, like for me, every day, when I wasn't working with these guys in Blue Rodeo, I had other friends that I was working with, recording with, and helping out, getting them started or whatever. And to me, it was just a day-to-day thing, and it never stopped. There was no such thing as a vacation. I mean, I never took a vacation. I just kept playing. So to be forced to take 2 years off and not do it has left me in a depression of some sort. So the thought of ever stopping, I'll play till I die. In fact, if I died on stage, that'd be fine.
Oh, my God, yeah.
Think of all the life we've tucked around playing. We've had babies born, we've accidents. You haul yourself in here half dead, play on a record.
Yeah.
It's like all these things adorn our lives as musicians.
That's right.
Well, on that note, thank you guys for taking the time to answer all these questions. And
Pleasure.
tell
Thanks
us-
for
Pleasure.
sending in the questions. Thank you. All right. We'll see you all.